Of course, we're back for another episode. What, you think I'd leave you? I would never leave you. Never, ever, 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 ever. All right. So I think it's super cool that when I get introduced to something outside of fitness, my brain always goes into, how does this relate to fitness? And you've probably heard these three Greek tales before, but it's a lot of wisdom that these tales provide. And I think it's a cool way to kind of bridge, fables and myths to real life. And how does this apply? So there's lots of mistakes you're making in the gym that they've been written about thousands of years ago. And maybe it's not direct because obviously you can apply these lessons to other aspects of your life too. But these are mirrors and they reflect our own lives. And I think that's a lot of things around stories is they are mirrors, and obviously paying attention to those stories, it's a great learning lesson. And in fact, that's something I'm really trying to do more of on these podcasts, is to give stories because it's a better way of learning. And I think that these are great stories to teach us of what not to do. And so I'm going to give you the three stories, the three characters, and a quick rundown, of course. So you've probably heard of someone who's narcissistic. That actually comes from this myth of Narcissus. It was a beautiful young man who probably looked like me, I'm just kidding, of course, who fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water, and he became so obsessed with the image that he couldn't look away, and he died. And obviously the danger is in the vanity and self-obsession. The other one, Sisyphus, I can't pronounce it, S-I-S-Y, a king who cheated death many times, but he was punished by the gods. He was condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down every time it neared the top, so he had to roll it up again. And he just was repetitive over and over, productive work that really wasn't productive. And that's the lesson, is the futility of repetitive, unproductive effort. And last but not least, there was Icarus. And this is probably the more famous one that most people have heard of. He flew close to the sun and died. Well, in reality, he had wings, and the wings were made of wax and feathers, and he was warned not to go too close to the sun, or else the wax would melt. And he did go too close, and he fell to his death. And the lesson is in hubris and recklessness. And I think these myths tie to fitness really well. In the gym, we can see these patterns playing out every single day. Vanity over health, endless cycles of effort with no results, and reckless ambition that leads to burnout or injury. And we're going to break down each of these myths. How does it apply to our health and fitness journey so we can avoid becoming a modern day narcissist, Sisyphus, or Icarus? So let's start with narcissist. This is probably one of the more common ones that most people can think of. A lot of people have said they've dated a narcissist. Narcissist is an actual human trait that we all have, and it's a spectrum. There's an argument that you want actually a little bit of a narcissist. You do want to be a little bit obsessed about yourself in a healthy manner to have more self-confidence in a way. But take it too far and you get captivated by your own self. So for Narcissus, he was captivated by his own reflection that he couldn't pull himself away, and he ignored everything else, his health, his relationships, his life, until he wasted away. So the takeaway from this myth here is obsession with appearance can blind you to what truly matters. We're going to come up with 3 different fitness analogies, and maybe one of these applies to you. The most common is chasing aesthetics over health. So people who prioritize looking good over feeling good. It's very common. People are going to want to hire me. Hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, you look good. Why? Well, I want to look better. Okay, what's your body fat percentage at? That's actually a pretty healthy body fat percentage. Are you sure you want to lose weight? Right? And extreme dieting and overtraining, using cosmetic fixes, Botox and fillers, instead of just focusing on proper nutrition and training. There's so many people who spend thousands of dollars a year on cute gym outfits and supplements and Botox and lip fillers, but won't invest in a good quality trainer or good quality food. And that's the part that just doesn't make sense to someone like me. I tend to avoid chasing aesthetics a little bit, but it still falls into the back of my head every once in a while. Oh yeah, it would be nice if I had bigger biceps or more muscle. And that chase can take away from my health, because is that what truly matters? If I grew half an inch on my arm, is that going to make that much of a difference in my life? Probably not. If I have a stronger core, stronger legs, better posture, better cardiovascular system, is that going to give stuff to my health? Probably more. So much more. It's just not on the outside. It's what's on the inside. And that can lead into body dysmorphia to some degree. Everybody has this on the spectrum. I, at times, can feel like I'm a little fluffy or not muscular enough. Kind of on both ends of that spectrum. I'm never perfect. I'm either could lose a couple pounds, or I could gain a couple pounds. And I can never find that sweet spot. I know I'm not the only one there, but that can take away from performance, because for 2 or 3 weeks, I might be thinking, I need to cut back on the food. I need to go to the gym a little bit harder. And then a couple weeks later, I kind of look like a skinny bitch. I need to add some muscle. I need to add some weight and go to the gym harder. That's kind of how my thought process is. And, I've been there where I felt like, I want to skip my cardio because I'm scared of losing a little bit of muscle, which in reality, I'd have to really abuse the cardio to do that. Or maybe I need to cut back the amount of I'm eating because I'm looking a little soft, right? And it can hold you back. So having that trainer, that coach, even someone like myself, to be that second set of eyes, because we're all going to be looking in the mirror and not seeing what reality actually is. And I think the social media and the comparison is a big toxic influence of comparing ourselves to other fitness influencers, chasing likes instead of real progress. Even people's workout routines is based off of chasing likes, putting it on social media and becoming obsessed about your own social media. And this social media is the modern day pool of water. It's easy to get lost in a reflection rather than focusing on your actual goals. And that's one thing I think I do a decent job of personally, is post not to get likes, but because I think it's actually valuable intrinsically. So here's some tips to focus on. Performance. Lift heavier, lift more reps, run harder, run faster, run further. Don't focus on aesthetics. Aesthetics will just be a side effect. Practice gratitude for what your body actually can do, and limit social media, especially when it comes to unhealthy comparisons. So that's narcissist. We all probably can relate to that one pretty good. I think syphilis, we can also relate to it pretty decently as well. It's like the hamster wheel of fitness. He was condemned to rolling a boulder uphill for eternity, only for it to roll back down every single time he got it to the top. And his efforts were endless and futile. And the key takeaway here from the myth is repeating the same unproductive actions lead to frustrations and burnout. And it's unproductive. You can make an argument that sometimes just getting to the gym and doing whatever, even if it's not productive, is important. I totally understand that. I fall into that too, that sometimes I just need to go to the gym to move my body and feel good. That's a little bit different. I want you to think about yo-yo dieting. Constantly losing the weight to regain the weight because of unsustainable diets. You're working really, really hard, but it's futile because you're going to fail, because I see that path, because I've seen so many people take that path of massive restricting on your calories and endless cardio. That's almost the blueprint for yo-yo dieting, and you just fall off. It's inevitable. Whether it's 3 months or a year, most people tend to fall off. And how many times have you heard someone say, this time I'm really going to stick to it, only to fall back into old habits? This can fall in line with these fad workouts. I am going to call out the HIIT classes and the endless treadmill sessions without seeing real progress. They see it at first, and then it's just this really hard plateau, and their only answer is to go harder, and then to go harder, and then to go harder, and then they get hurt, they fall off, and they gain all that weight back. It feels productive in the moment, but are you actually getting stronger or healthier, or are you just spinning your wheels? During COVID is when I really saw that at the F45s, and my one really good trainer friend, Brandon, and I some of these exercises we would modify because we already saw that they were just so filler exercise. I'm going to give you a couple examples of these filler exercises that really, the point of them is to make you feel tired. The first one is weighted dumbbell punches. I would argue burpees. Unless you're training for something super specific for burpees, you don't need burpees in your program. They're really just a filler. I'd make the argument bench hops. And I'd also make the argument of doing 3 cardio workouts a week on top of HIIT strength workouts. That's so much just being cardio or calorie burn. Do you know how easy it is to eat a couple hundred calories? It takes less than a minute. You know how long it takes to burn those calories? 45 minutes. And you know what? The point of a workout is not to burn as many calories. And if we treat it as such, then people just value the calories. And then they just think that they need to burn more and more and more. There's going to be value in it, but are you actually getting stronger? I would see members at that gym lift the same weight for the same amount of reps for years and years and years. And when you ask them to go heavier, you know, I probably can't do that for the whole 35 seconds. You're right, because it's only 20 seconds of rest. But don't do it for the whole 35 seconds. Do it for 15, 20 seconds, put it down, and take a longer rest. I was very big on preaching that. And that's overtraining without rest. That's the last point here of syphilis. How many people do you see who do constant circuits and HIIT style training, and they might get results short because it's a new stimuli, but in the long term, they really just are spinning their tires, right? And a lot of people think rest is for the weak, but the truth is that rest is when the magic happens, because that lets you lift the heavier weight, which signals to the body to get stronger, to build more muscle, to speed up the metabolism. And it's not just rest within the workout, it's rest between workouts. And I might actually fall into that category too. I probably overtrain because I like to work out every single day, and I typically don't like the bro splits. And so I might actually be leaving some gains on the table at times as well. So we want to focus on progressive overload, gradually increasing the intensity, not just starting off intense, and then prioritize into something else, and then do traditional structured periodization. And then just because someone says, we're changing up the workout, really look at the big picture. Is it that much different? I can tell you for a fact, F45 CrossFit and Orange Theory, it's really not that much different. CrossFit actually probably has the biggest change. Prioritize sustainable habits over these quick fixes and schedule these rest days for your body. Last but not least, Icarus, the dangers of recklessness. This is actually probably the one I fall into the most. So Icarus ignored his father's warnings and flew way too close to the sun, and his wings melted, and he fell to his death. So the key takeaway here is recklessness, ignorance, and ignoring limits can lead to disaster. A lot of people probably fall into the PED and burnout, so trying to chase through quick results, performance-enhancing drugs, unsustainable training. You might get the shortcut, and it might be faster, but at what cost? Burnout, injuries, or even worse, hormonal problems. The funny thing about something like steroids is you get a lot of muscle gains quick, but the tendons and ligaments don't catch up nearly as quick, and you're actually almost more likely to hurt yourself. The analogy I like to use here is imagine driving a really fast car without learning A, how to drive cars properly, and B, it has no brakes. So you've souped up the car so it drives really fast, but it's not safe anymore. And so a lot of people actually end up with more muscle tears and injuries. Another example here is they're doing bodybuilding, building up, they look good, they feel good, they think they're strong, and they go out and do a sport. And again, because they haven't trained in that way, they're actually more likely to hurt themselves than someone who's maybe a little bit more deconditioned, but that's because they don't have this massive engine when they're deconditioned. Ignoring injuries. And this is the one I definitely come back to the most. I had my knee injury, ACL surgery, and I was excelling really fast in my rehab. I attacked it hard. And unfortunately, that resulted in pushing a little bit too hard, a little too fast. You hear a little pop, a little twinge, hamstring got a little bit more pulled than it should have, and that then sets me back worse, not just in the moment, but also in the long term. And I thought I was being tough by gutting it out, but it was just being reckless. And I also played sports with it torn, rather than just taking that step back and taking the time. I just didn't have the maturity to understand that. And this also falls with me too, is the ego lifting. Lifting heavy weights to impress others, but it can actually lead to more tweaks and more injuries, and sometimes not as much growth. 5x5 training, I had to learn the hard way, does build more strength than just always trying to chase your 1 rep max, because you get so much more volume, just slightly submaximal. You can go further, you get more practice, and you get stronger quicker. And your ego doesn't care about your long-term health. It's just that win in the moment. So tips, practice patience. Progress takes so much time. Listen to your body, respect its limits, find the limit, and then just back off a little bit, and then stay there for a bit, find the limit. Too past your limits too often. And longevity. Fitness is a marathon, not a sprint. And this is the Greek fool's triad in action. I think building awareness around these 3 triads, understanding that yes, you do need to fly, you just don't need to fly to the sky. Yes, you do need to work hard, but you want it to be productive, you don't just want it to be futile. And yes, you do want to look good, but it shouldn't overshadow your health and your performance. So ask yourself, which of these few fools am I more like in my fitness journey? And it's a spectrum. You're gonna have a little bit of one, a little bit of the other, but maybe a lot of the most. Personally, I think I related to Icarus the most in my 20s, early 20s. I probably relate to Sisyphus the most right now. Even with my work with my business, I feel like it was a good ego. Is there times I do work for the sake of saying, oh, I'm being productive, instead of doing the thing that's actually going to move the needle the most? And I had to think about that too a little bit with my own business. And I think narcissists, I didn't actually care as much about vanity early on. Maybe as I get older, a little bit more now. But it's really just the fluffy, slight dysmorphia. But it's impossible not to have body dysmorphia in fitness, I would say. Just being aware of it. So again, self-reflection. The next is set some balanced goals, right? How do you combine your aesthetics, your performance, and your health? Again, you can think of that as a triad. And what is the most important for you? Probably health, then performance, then aesthetics. And ironically, focusing on it in that order, you're going to get a lot of aesthetics. Having aesthetics at the top, you probably am going to suffer in performance and health a lot more. Performance at the top might sacrifice a bit of health and a bit of aesthetics. So I would order personally health, performance, and then aesthetics. And it's not like you get pure health and you're not going to look good. Think about that. But what looks good on a magazine doesn't always look good in real life. And then building awareness, build awareness, build awareness. Recognize when you're following into these traps. And sometimes you might take one step closer to it and not realize yet. And then you take another step, and then you have to recalibrate. Oh, nope, got to come back here. So the gym isn't just a place for your body, it's a place to build character. Learning from the mistakes of Narcissus, Sisyphus, and Icarus, we can avoid the traps of vanity, futility, and recklessness, and instead chase goals that actually matter. So I want you to share your thoughts with me on these stories, and until next time. I think that's a good one, actually.